Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I've got a 1971 International 1110 two-wheel drive Stepside short bed, and we're going to see if we can get it to start. It's a pretty cool little truck. It was bought and sold originally in Santa Rosa, New Mexico, brand new, and I actually bought it from the son of the dealership owner. It had been a ranch truck on a local ranch its whole life, and then he purchased it back from that original owner. But it's a 6-cylinder with the AMC 232 engine, inline 6, and a 4-speed manual transmission. Been sitting a long time. Overall, it's pretty decent shape. It's got some dents from being a ranch truck. I'd kind of like to just make it run and use it as a parts chaser, but I kind of like it. I'll show you what's under the hood. So the underside of the hood's pretty dusty, pretty dirty. Got some mouse poo. Anyways, what I'm going to do, I'm going to drain the oil, change the filter. I have to install a distributor, which I have a spare one, so it didn't have one when I purchased it. And I've got the carburetor off. We just finished rebuilding it. We'll be putting that on, checking all the fluids, and see if it'll crank over and run. I also need to flush the fuel tank out and put some fresh gas in. It's pretty simple under here. A lot of room under this hood. It's kind of cool. It's a little bit low-powered engine. That 232 wasn't quite enough for these trucks, in my opinion. The 258 that was put in starting in 1972, the year later, was a lot better of an engine. But let's see if we can get it to start and run. The interior is a little bit roached out on this thing, especially the dash. The dash is beyond repair, in my opinion. But yeah, we can have the seat reupholstered. We can clean it up. We can still make it look nice. Well, good enough to chase parts anyways. Pretty cool little truck. Something unique about this one, I've never seen one that had the fuel filler on the passenger side fender rather than the passenger side cab corner. It only has one tank. Usually if it has dual tanks, the pickups will have the main tank here and the auxiliary tank on the driver's side in the fender. But this has the factory plug. Little short bed step side. I've got an extra tailgate. Really cool rear bumper. It allows for the tailgate to swing straight down. So I picked up a full set of ignition tune-up parts, filters. I've rebuilt the carburetor and rebuilt the distributor. See, we got all new points, condenser, and a cap and rotor here, fuel filter, oil filter, and a new gasket for the distributor. Bought a rebuild kit for the Holly 1920 from Mikes Carburetor Shop online. It's a pretty good kit, and real happy with it. Went together very well and cleaned up real nice. Looks about like new. And we've got all our settings done here on the distributor when it's easy to do while it's off. I do need to add a wire to the coil, but otherwise I think we're ready to put this together and see if it'll start. So I have all the original parts and service manuals for my trucks, and I'm able to refer to them for the different specifications such as timing, spark plug gap, pretty much anything you'd ever need to know about the engine. That's all here in these books. If you need one for your truck, they're available as reprints through Binder Books. They're a great source for this stuff. So we've got all our timing specs, firing order, all that stuff for when we put our new distributor in, set our points, set our plug gap, set our idle. It's all right here. This particular one applies to the 232 and the 258, two separate columns here. When I went to change the filter in the fuel pump, see, this one has the actual filter inside the fuel pump assembly. A lot of the other models will have it in line as it comes down the frame rail to the fuel pump. I went to change this, and when I open it up, you'll see there's no filter in it. Thankfully they left the spring, but there's also a lot of dirt and crusty stuff in here, so unfortunately the fuel pump is going to have to be replaced or rebuilt. I prefer to rebuild the original stuff. I can get a new one off the shelf that doesn't have the filter assembly as part of the unit for around $50, but it's about $50 for the rebuild kit for this, and I just prefer to do it that way. Have a rebuildable unit. Anyways, so I guess I got to get that ordered, and we'll wait to put that together. I went ahead and got the oil changed and changed the filter. I got a new 1049 NAPA oil filter on there. The oil came out, it was dark and it was a little runny, but there was no moisture intrusion that I could see and no big chunks of anything scary, so I think we're safe there. When I bought this truck, the distributor had been removed and there was just a hole where the distributor goes right down there behind the cap. I stuffed a rag in it when I bought it, so nothing should have happened since then, and it was in a little more of a less desert environment when I bought it, so it wasn't a lot of dust like there is here. I've got the fuel pump removed like you saw earlier, and we're going to wait on the kit that I ordered. I've got the timing rolled around to top dead center on the compression stroke, so the distributor is ready to install, and I found the clamp to hold down the distributor, thankfully, because I did not have one of those, but I found it. And then I'm going to pull the spark plugs out and spray a little bit of either engine oil or Marvel Mystery oil down in there just to give it a little bit of lubrication for the initial startup. It's been sitting a long time. And then we got new plugs, new wires, new cap, new rotor, all that going to be going on it, along with the rebuilt carburetor. I am also going to hook a electric fuel pump up to this line and try to draw any questionable fuel out of the tank and remove that before putting fresh fuel in the tank. We don't want that nasty stuff getting up in the freshly rebuilt carburetor and our new fuel pump. So I've installed the distributor gasket. I put some grease on the gear just so it's not dry when it first starts up. I don't really know how long this thing's been sitting, so we're going to go ahead and pull the rag out. So I want the dash pot sticking that way, and number one is there, which lines up with that hole right there. It's about perfect, so I want it about like that. That looks about perfect. I had to rotate the engine just a little bit to get the oil drive shaft to line up with the oil pump in the bottom of the distributor, but we're all good now. Set back to top dead center, so it should set about like that. Perfect. I'll go get the new distributor cap and we'll get it on there to cover that from the elements. You can kind of hear it starting to sprinkle on me. Had to stop for a minute because the rain was picking up, but went ahead and got the rotor installed. The rotor is a NAPA part number RR182R, and then we've got a new distributor cap ready to go on, and that is NAPA part number RR183. This doesn't apply to the 258. A lot of the installation stuff is similar, but the points, the condenser, the cap and rotor, I believe, are slightly different. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and, so as you can see, I've got back to top dead center on number one cylinder compression stroke. I've got the pointer on the rotor is just this side of that screw hole, which puts us right where this one was. It's not imperative that you have that exactly the way it was, but I try to keep it similar to how the factory did it. So I'll go ahead and set the cap on there. And I've also got it lined up pretty good. I'm going to take a wrench and go ahead and tighten this down so it doesn't move any more than it has to. we'll snug it up just a little bit so that way when we time it, there's still enough slop I can move it when I set the timing. Just a little side note, both of these screws are different sizes, so the cap only does go in one direction. If you're having trouble, that might be why. All these spark plugs and spark plug wires are replaced and plugged into the distributor in the correct order. And I'm gonna call it a night. The sun's starting to go down, and it's actually really nice out now. It rained earlier, but it's been over 100 today for sure. We'll get the carburetor and everything installed tomorrow, and I still got to order that fuel pump part and a few other things, but we'll resume. So it's the next morning, and I've got the carburetor ready to install. Got this rebuilt yesterday. It's a Holly 1920. It's the original carburetor off this truck. When you order carb kits, it's kind of important. New old stock ones are out there, but they're not, the materials they're made out of aren't designed for the modern fuels with the ethanol and some of the other stuff that's in the fuel nowadays. I've got this from Mikes Carburetor Shop, the kit for this one, and it is made for all the ethanol fuels and whatnot. So hopefully this one will last a long time. I'm gonna go ahead and pull my little plug out of here. I always stick the hardware back on here so I don't lose it. Hopefully I don't drop it down the hole. Can't figure out if there's a gasket there. Yep, there it is. Get that off of there. Alright, we got our new gasket. Put that on there. And then we'll set the carburetor in place and tighten it down. A lot of people torque really hard down on these bolts, but if they don't need a whole lot. Inch pounds definitely, not foot pounds. You will crack the carburetor housing if you over torque it, and we don't want that because you can't just buy these new. Well, you can buy the Chinese knockoff ones, but they are not necessarily anywhere near the same quality as the originals. Hook up our throttle cable and our choke cable. And our choke cable. You want to get it snug, but not so much you pinch the cable inside because it makes it hard to operate from inside the truck. And we're full open. Okay. So now we And now we can't forget about our throttle return spring, but it might be a challenge. There we go. Beautiful. So as you noticed yesterday, we had a fuel pump problem and we have to order a kit for it. However, I do have a gas can that is for a boat, and it has a hose on it, and I keep a 12-volt inline electric fuel pump around to feed things like this, or I can plumb it together and we can probably try to just start it. And I've also got a good old battery we can try to crank it over with. So let's get that hooked up and see how it goes. Well, that's good news. We're going to see if she'll fire on some carb cleaner. Well, that's exciting news. Let's try it one more time. Well, that tells me if we can get fuel to it and the carburetor works, we're going to run. So I've got my boat gas tank plumbed into electric fuel pump, which goes over here to the battery, and the hoses hook onto the regular fuel line where the fuel pump would be mounted. Obviously this isn't permanent for this truck. I use this to do first starts occasionally, and also check if stationary engines run, whatnot. Just a little setup I keep around. Anyways, that should pump fuel to our new carburetor, and maybe it'll even start and stay running. You can hear the fuel pump quieted down, so now it's got resistance against it. I don't see anything leaking out of the fuel bowl, so that's a good sign. Hopefully our float is floating. Let's see if we can start it. The alternator bearings are very happy. It's running pretty good. Supposed to get a timing light out here and check the timing, get it set permanently. Sweet, she runs. So we got the timing set, added some coolant, and she runs. That's pretty good, doesn't even have a cloud of smoke out the bag. It's a cool little truck. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more.